G'day folks, and welcome to the September update for Great Chesterford Junction. Since the last update I've done a couple of things, and the last update was basically about close coupling. Well, I've also moved into some corridor connections as well, and on top of that I've also worked on a sensor system for my workshop here and the back shed as well. The back shed especially is an area that is not visible in the train room or from the train room, and so it's difficult to see the progress of a train through that area. At this stage I've been listening to it, which is not great, whereas in this area here it can be seen through the train door. So some form of sensor was sorted out, and it's an idea I've had for a few years now. And I made some panels and put them up, so that's all fully functional now. I'm just waiting on some extra parts to come to sort of just improve the display slightly. So so we'll take you through what I've been doing, and we'll start with the corridor connections. One of the first things I did though was I did a bit of a test on my fiddle yard to see how these coaches would go with the close coupling. So I ran in the rake with a couple of different locos just to test it out. So we can have a look at that first, or some excerpts from it, but we might even run the whole thing. So we'll have a look at that and see how that goes. This video was done at the time and was put up on platform 1, so it wouldn't have been seen on YouTube at this particular time. Yes, we now skip to the fiddle yard where the train's entering the sliding fiddle yard on road 6. We have 6 available roads in here for storage, and the 7th road is purely for loco release. This is the 7th road's on the right hand side there. So the loco will come in here and uncouple. These are homemade uncoupling ramps, and they're very good. So we'll let this loco couple up and take the train back to Great Chesterford Junction, and then we'll try the same process again with a Great Western Prairie that I've got. So this close coupling works quite well, folks, in the fiddle yard area. The entrance to the fiddle yard is actually through a quite tight radius curve. It's 18 inches, I think, from memory. I may have opened it out a bit at the time, but I think I started with an 18-inch curve. So the coaches negotiate that whether pushing or pulling, and obviously pulling is preferred, but yeah, there's no issue going through there. So this just demonstrates that it works as it's supposed to work. Right, folks, well, that works reasonably well. So once the train is pulled into the platform, we'll move on to the corridor connections. Right, folks, the method for doing this is all over the internet, and there's several ways you can do it. The method I have used is paper. So I've cut out some concertinas from just plain paper and folded the panels accordingly. And there's a slit cut halfway up through each piece of paper, and two pieces of paper can be blended together to form a concertina. So the paper in this case is coloured with just texture, which tends to go straight through. We've also got some ends here for the concertinas. There's some ends which are sliding panels, and there are some ends which insert into the corridor ends of the coaches. So you can see the concertinas are made here. There's only a few panels in them, and they've just been slid together. It's really quite simple when you get the hang of it. And the ends will be glued onto the faces top and bottom on these concertinas. So that's a sliding face glued on there. The idea is that these faces can slide past each other when going through S formations, and it'll become more evident in the video how this works. Now, I have mainline, Bachmann, Hornby and Lima coaches at the moment, so each one of the corridor ends has a different measurement. So I've made up these insert panels, these white pieces of 2mm card to go into the ends of the corridors on each different brand of coach. And then a flat panel is glued to that as well, and that is glued onto the back of a concertina. And because they're all different sizes, once I've made one up, I mark it L for Lima, B for Bachmann, M for mainline, etc. As you can see here, I've got 2 main lines and a Lima ready to go. And they're a push fit into the corridor ends because they were carefully measured to suit them. So this is a Hornby one. And before the white insert is pushed into the corridor end, I just put a bit of blue tack in there and push it in, and it just holds it well enough. They're compressed anyway between each other when they're in a rake. However, with the blue tack, they're easily removable and there's no damage to the coach. You can see 2 here ready to go. And that's how they come up when they're compressed. That big gap between the coaches is gone, folks, when you do this. It's very simple to do, etc. And now we'll move on to the video and you can see how these work in action. When this video was done, only a couple of coaches were done, 2 or 3 coaches I think. So not the whole rake was done at the time, but you'll get the idea of how this works, and especially how it works when they're travelling through an S formation. Okay, we've got the last 3 coaches of the train here. The rest of it's not done with corridor connections yet. So what we'll do is we'll give it a run and try and run it slowly, and we'll see how it goes through this S formation. Okay, this is the first coach, and you can see the corridor connectors there with the sliding plates starting to work. And here's the next one. You can see that they slide past each other to get through this S formation. And that's what makes the difference. Right, folks, I did a video a few years back about train detection, and I've virtually followed the same idea that I used in that video. I can put a link up to it if you want to watch it, but this is an improvement, I suppose, on that system. And what it is a length of galvanized wire, straightened. It's got to be dead straight, and it's measured out to 300mm long, and I've got a right angle bend at each end which goes into a hole in the baseboard, and the rod is secured with 3 staples over the one over each end and one in the middle, and I have a wire soldered to each staple, and I've also got a wire soldered to one end of the rod. You can't see it very well there, but this is like an open reed switch, and it is activated by a magnet under the locomotive, and sets off an LED when it's activated. So you can see here's some testing. There's a magnet under this loco. It's run over the rod here, and it has created a switch, if you like, and turned on this little LED. You can see it's just a neodymium magnet super glued up under the loco. Obviously it's picked up some crap along the way, but that can be brushed off every now and then. Actually, in a way it's a good thing, I think, to pick up stuff going around the railway, but yeah, some would disagree with that. So I started designing panels to suit these sensors, and so each room is basically a U-shape as far as the track layout's concerned, but I thought I would design it as a timeline. And so it keeps it quite simple and small, and this fits on about, it'd be roughly the third of an A4 page in landscape orientation. So they're quite small. And 2 LEDs in each block or section, if you like, even one on the bridge. That's the bridge across the doorway into the workshop here. And for the back shed, it's the same sort of deal. I've got a rather long folding bridge across the room to go from Little Bardfield across to the western wall in the back shed, and so I've put 2 sensors on there, and because it's quite long I call it Thaxted Viaduct. These are all real names but fictional locations in my railway. So by the time you get up to Little Shelford, the last sensor there on the left, you're nearly at Little Bardfield. So this is the wiring pretty much complete in the workshop. This is the last sensor that went in, and this is on the approach to Little Bardfield, and the wires on the lower part here with the blue and white and the green are all to do with the sensors, and all the other wires are to do with the block instrument system. So this is wiring in the back shed, so the sensors are going in. This is on the Thaxted Viaduct, the folding bridge. So 2 sensors there, a foot long each, and by this stage I've started using trimmed down very small tile spaces as insulators on either side of the rod, so we don't get any false setting off of the current and lighting LEDs, and this works quite well actually. They're just a push fit in there, and the staple pushes down on them and holds them in place. And this is on the first stage of the incline. That's the first sensor there, and at this stage I've started doing slight bends in them to just go through a slight curve in the track. It's the same with the one further up as well, and then by this time we're around to the last climb, approaching Little Bardfield. And again, there's 2 sensors here, and this is testing obviously. You can see the LEDs lit, but these have a slight bend in them as well, and that's worked quite well. You can see the insulator there. It's not quite pushed over to one side just yet, but that's setting it up, and a very simple process. So the panels were printed out, laminated and cut out, and the idea with this particular system is to have them illuminated from within. So I've got some clear plastic here, which used to be some sort of a magnifying sheet that's about A4 size, and I was able to cut that in half and drill it, so I've got one for each panel so they can be illuminated from behind, and that will be especially good if we're doing nighttime running. And here we're doing a test drill just to try an LED to fit in there. They're 5mm LEDs I'll be using, amber LEDs, so that's just a bit of scrap plastic, and just testing to see whether it would shatter once it was drilled, but everything was fine, it was okay. Easy to cut, and it drilled properly every time, so that's good. Now I've got some old drawer sides that I decided to use to create the boxes for the panels, and currently at the moment this is 11mm thick, and so that was eventually put through my thicknesser and brought down to 10mm, and obviously cut out and all that sort of thing to suit the boxes in the end. And the boxes will be attached to the walls with toggle bolts. It's fibre cement walls in here, so that'll work quite well. And here are the parts for the boxes cut out. There's a rebate cut in the fronts of the panels for the schematic to slide into with this plastic backing. And they're all rebates were cut to a depth of 3mm along a fence set 5mm off the blade. And this is a test fit. The box is just held together with a clamp, just to make sure everything's going to fit and everything's honky-dory. So that's all good there. And the back of the boxes is made out of exactly the same timber, and obviously everything had to be measured exactly so it will fit really well. And so it's all screwed together, folks. This is not going to be glued at all, and so it can be all taken apart if necessary, but during assembly I'll be removing just one end to slide the schematic in. For the panels, to mount the LEDs, I first thought I would glue them in, but decided I found some M5 nuts, and the LEDs are a perfect fit, push fit into these nuts. So I've super glued the nuts to in behind the holes in the plastic panel, and then when I've done my soldering, I just push fit the LEDs into place. It worked really well. And just seeing how it looks lighting up behind the panel there. And for this soldering, I've had to trim down the leads on the LEDs and the resistors to quite a short length, so I use these helping hands for soldering. They're basically alligator clips on a stand, and I've had these ones for years. As you can see, they've been knocked around a bit, but very handy. If you haven't got any, I would really suggest you get some. Helping hands. And so the boxes here have been varnished. They've had a couple of coats of varnish, and it's in keeping with the rest of the railway in terms of its colour. They're just about ready to go there, and you can see the screws in the ends there. They come out quite easily, so it'll be easy to slide the panels in, the front panels in. And the wiring from the workshop now has been fed through the wall, the dividing wall. This was tricky. I had to come down through the top plate in the wall. Fortunately I can access that fairly easily, and then drop a string down and pull that through, and then feed the wires through into the room. This is setting up a 15-pin connector to the wiring on one of the panels just before it's ready to be fitted. And this is the the box now fitted to the wall, held with its toggle bolts, and the wiring's fed through, and we need a 15-pin connector on these wires as well. And the 15-pin connectors on there, there's also a switch up there to switch the internal lighting on and off as well. All that will be pushed back into the wall and cleaned up like that. So what we have here up the top here, if I can just use the mouse, this little strip of wood here has got some LED strip behind it. There's 3 little LEDs on a strip behind there, super glued to the back of that, and so they project a light towards the back of the box, and this reduces shadows from wires and all that sort of thing in the box. The wires that connect to that and the switch and in behind the 15-pin connector are all sort of pushed back towards the back of the box and held in place with this clip here. And so this is a test of the internal lighting, all good there. So obviously we've got a power feed and everything in there. And this is the box complete with the front panel fitted and everything, and all ready to go. It's come up reasonably well, and the top of it is about 1.9 meters off the floor. And that's the switch for the internal lighting. And it's visible from all parts of the room. It actually looks better than that with the naked eye, but it's hard to get an idea of distance with a camera. And this is what it looks like when it's lit up. There's also a video to show this, so that'll be coming in a while. And this is the second panel that's completed now, and you can see it's going through the process of being tested there. And that's what that one looks like lit up in a darkened room. So what we're going to do is run this little class 33 away from Great Chesterford Junction out through the tunnel into the workshop, and it'll make its way up to Little Bardfield. And throughout its journey we can track its progress on the panel. So we'll start it now. So we've hit our first sensor on the incline, making its way up to Little Bardfield. Now we're going around the curve, and now we're on the eastern wall, and we're about to go over the first sensor, and then the second one is just before the bridge across the doorway, which is Camden Bridge. It's just come over Camden Bridge, and now it's making its final approach to Little Bardfield. Okay, now we'll send it back the other way, and we can watch the sensors working in that direction. It's going a bit slower this time, so we'll just see how it performs. Okay, it's making its approach to Camden Bridge. It's on the bridge now, and it'll be making a right hand turn and then going down the incline on the eastern wall, approaching the first sensor. And then the second. It's going quite slow now. Then it'll make a right hand turn onto the southern wall and down the incline, making its run into Great Chesterford Junction. And just as this last sensor goes off, it's not too far from the tunnel. It's just making its way in now. I've also set this panel up with an interior light for night time running in the room, so we just stick the internal light on and it illuminates the panel. It probably won't ring true in colour on the video, but that's the best we can do. And yeah, so it's lit up. It's actually a very muted sort of creamy colour, I suppose we'd have to say. So if we just run a train up again, the little class 33, you can see the indicators will go off. It's just leaving the room now. and making its final approach into Little Bardfield. Well folks, that's it for the moment. I'm waiting on some capacitors to come through the mail. I can't go out and get them because we're in a lockdown here, so I just have to wait, and that will smooth out the LEDs on the panel. Instead of being sharp on and sharp off, they'll come on sharply, but the capacitors will even out the current flow through the LEDs, so they'll stay on a bit longer and then they'll just fade away, so it'll be quite a smooth operation once they're fitted. So yes, as I said, that's about it for the moment, so I'll catch up with you on the next video. So you take care and I'll see you next time.